Hey guys, I just went ahead and completed Atomic Heart. It took me around 28 hours and I practically 100%'d it. I started the game on hard, swapped to medium for a little bit, and then swapped back to hard. And we'll touch on that when we get to the cons about the difficulty scaling. But let me go ahead and give you the pros and then the cons, and then I'll give you my final rating of the game. Let me also know what you guys think about the new format of the reviews. People wanted gameplay and stuff in the background, so I'm going to have some varied gameplay. First section is just going to show, like, the world and stuff. This is all from pretty early in the game. Second section will showcase some combat, and then the third will be some puzzles. So if you really want to avoid all spoilers, don't watch the gameplay. Of course, I can't give you gameplay without any spoilers, but let me know what you guys think. But let's get into the pros. The first thing I really enjoy about the game is the world and the lore. It's very Bioshock. Soviet Bioshock is how it's been described, and they don't hide this at all. There's many references to Bioshock, both through dialogue, through abilities, through powers, and them just straight up, like, calling out Bioshock one-to-one. So they don't hide it at all. It's clearly Bioshock inspired heavily, and I really enjoy that. Bioshock's one of my favorite single-player FPS games of all time, and I absolutely love everything in it. But one thing I would say is a lot of people are complaining about the game and the dialogue, especially in the writing, and saying that it's so cheesy, there's so many jokes, and they're always talking and stuff like that. Do not go into this game expecting something like a Bioshock or a Prey. I know, like, visually it looks like it, but tonally it is not like a Bioshock or a Prey or anything. If anything, I'd say it's more akin to like a Duke Nukem. And for me, I actually really like that. I like the kind of B-movie voice acting and protagonist and the banter he has with his glove, Charles. I really liked that. And I thought a lot of the comedy really hit for me. But, of course, if you've been on Twitter at all and you've seen anything about the game, I'm in the minority there. Or maybe I'm not. I don't even know, because Twitter in and of itself is a minority. But people on Twitter seem to fucking hate it. Like, they absolutely despise the dialogue. For me, I think it's a pro. I think it's actually really good. I think that, other than some pacing issues with the English, which I'll get to a little bit in the cons, but other than that, I think it definitely has a tone that I just think people weren't prepared for. A lot of people saw the gameplay and stuff, and they thought it was going to be like Bioshock or Prey, very serious in tone, and it's not. It does know when to get serious, and when it does need to get serious, it does it well, in my opinion. And it does touch on a lot of serious topics through humor. Stuff like talking about communism and capitalism and the benefits and the pros and cons to both of those systems, and communism actually really work in all reality, and should it work? That type of stuff is really interesting to me, and I'm a fan. So I actually like the dialogue. Just go into it expecting more like a Duke Nukem type of thing, though. And the world is very fleshed out. It's the lore is there. There's a lot of stuff to read. There's a lot of stuff to pick up. You glean a lot just through the actual environmental design, which I think is phenomenal. I mean, if you're looking at the gameplay now, you can see it's super, like, Bioshock inspired. With just a passing glance, you could see the parallels, especially in this section with Infinite. But I think it actually does it on the same caliber of Bioshock when it comes to environmental design and storytelling. I think it's really good. Another thing that I have to absolutely applaud is the performance. We actually got a PC game in 2023 with the Nouveau even that doesn't run like complete horseshit. There's no stuttering in this game whatsoever. I had everything maxed out, and I was sitting at a solid 144 FPS and 1440p. Of course, I do have a 3080 Ti and a Ryzen 7 5800X, but that doesn't even matter. Like, my PC's been stuttering to hell and back with recent releases with Callisto, Wild Hearts, Dead Space, you name it. I feel like every single game releasing recently has just ran like shit. But this game is the exception. It runs fucking great. So, really big fan of that. And I have to give them props when props is due. You know, shit is great. Another thing that I really like about the game is the combat. I'll showcase a little bit of it here. I chose to go like a more melee forward build, but it is an action RPG at the end of the day, so you can decide if you want to go, you know, melee or use guns more or lean more into your ability usage. But I think it does have a good balance with utilizing the abilities, which are pretty varied. There's not as many abilities as I'd like to see, and some are very clearly better than others. But I do think at the end of the day, the abilities are interesting and they have unique kind of aspects to them. So one that you'll see me use a lot is polymeric shield, which puts a bubble around you. And you can actually upgrade this so it will reflect projectiles and people's shots at you. So you can kind of look back at them, almost like a Genji deflect in Overwatch or something, and hit it back at them, which is super satisfying. And it will also, you can upgrade it so when people melee you, you'll actually get healed. And on top of that, you will reflect the melee damage back. And then if you upgrade it enough, you'll reflect 2 times the melee damage back. So it's actually just a great all-around ability to have if you want a more defensive playstyle and you want to run melee a little bit more and really get in people's faces. But all of the abilities I thought were good. I used all of them throughout the course of the game, and I didn't think any of them were bad. I thought they were all pretty interesting. One thing, I just wish they were used a little bit more in the puzzles in the game. Not a lot of ability usage in puzzles, unfortunately, apart from one of the dungeons. But other than that, I really liked all the abilities. I love the combat. It's gory and satisfying, and mixed with the next pro, which is the soundtrack, it's very satisfying. This game at times can feel very Doom-inspired because the soundtrack is by Mick Gordon, the genius, probably one of the greatest video game composers of all time, and the genius behind the Doom soundtracks, and it's just as hard as the Doom soundtracks. I didn't know Russian music had so many fucking bangers, but when you're driving through the world in your car, it is really, really satisfying, actually. And I'm just vibing to some Russian music. I don't know what the fuck it's saying. It could be talking about how terrible America is or something, but I'm jamming nonetheless. It's dope. I really, really enjoyed it. And one thing I'll also say is I'm a fan of the puzzles. Like, even though I do think the abilities should have been showcased a little bit more, and I actually have some puzzle gameplay I can show you guys. There's these things called testing centers. I think there's 11 or 12 of them throughout the world, and you go through them and they'll have you solve various puzzles. And once you do that, you'll unlock mods for your various weapons. So these can be something simple like a red dot sight, or they could be something a little bit more advanced, like the ability with your machete to throw the blade out and then pull it back, which gives you a ranged capabilities. With your melee weapon, which can be really, really nice against stuff like flying enemies. So these testing centers are pretty varied, and the puzzles, I'm not even a puzzle lover, but I actually was really enjoying the puzzles in the game. If I could skip all this looting and get to the actual puzzle part, there we go. But they're pretty varied. They actually require you to use your noggin a little bit, and I like them quite a bit. I also enjoyed the puzzles for the lockpicking. It's not just your standard, Fallout lockpicking, which I'm fucking so sick and tired of. It was in Hogwarts as well. I always get a mod to skip that. This, I actually really enjoy it. There's various different timing-based puzzles. There's rotating of color puzzles. There's a good variety there that actually stops you from just being completely done with them and annoyed whenever you have to do it. And I actually really liked all the puzzles in the game, surprisingly. The final pro I'll say is I actually really like the main story. I've seen a lot of people not like the main story. I actually really like it. Like I said, it does make you kind of go through a journey with the protagonist where you're like questioning their beliefs. It's a standard story where character believes X. They start to realize that maybe X is not the right way to think, and as a result, they kind of have their opinions swayed throughout the course of the game. I really liked it. I thought it has some really solid surprises in it, and It is very Bioshock inspired, no doubt about that, but I didn't mind that because it's been, what, 10 plus years since we played Bioshock, so it's fine. Like, they don't have a monopoly on the narrative in that game or anything. But let's get into the cons. It's not all rainbows and daisies when it comes to the game. I think the first con, the thing that aggravated me the most, is the inventory system. As you saw earlier, whenever you loot, it's wonderful, it's quick, it's snappy. You just kind of give the suck, almost like you're Patrick Star. You know, you're just... You suck up all of the loot, and it's super fast. It looks visually really cool. It doesn't really get old, at least in my opinion. It's a really, really cool application of like a telekinesis type ability. I wish Bioshock had that. Jesus Christ, that'd be great. But it does this annoying thing where you actually have an inventory, and it just puts everything in your inventory, and then once you get extra stuff that won't fit in your inventory, it puts it in your storage, which you can access by going to, you know, a storage machine. And the thing with that is, a lot of the times, you would just want to loot, you know, ammo for the weapons that you're using, right? Well, you don't get a choice in the matter. It's picking up everything and putting it in your backpack. And so if it picks up a bunch of ammo, you know, and puts it in your backpack for weapons you're not actually even using, then you now have to go out of your way and you have to go to the machine and pull out the ammo that you do want. So it's a little bit frustrating. Also, you kind of have to get the backpack upgrades because you will just not have enough space whatsoever by the middle of the game. Like, it'll just be ridiculous. But one thing I also didn't like is the collision mapping in the game. I got stuck so many freaking times, dude. It was absurd, like how often I got stuck. I counted 12 times I was stuck, just like in the floor, unable to move, had to reload a past save. And that's really frustrating, man. Like, when that happens, especially if your save is really far away, that's super duper frustrating. I also got stuck a lot just in the combat. And this kind of brings up an interesting point, because we have to talk about the trailers. I mean, this game has had trailers and stuff for 6 years now. It's a long fucking time. And so as a result, and you're really seeing me struggle on this puzzle here because I'm not a puzzle guy, I'm going to be honest, but I wanted to show you guys puzzles so you could see what they're like. But I'm sorry if it's cringe city. Try to see me figure this shit out, dude. I'm not good at puzzles at all. But yeah, we have to talk about the fact that there's been 6 years of trailers, and a lot of shit that's in those trailers is not in the game. A lot of the weapons, a lot of the enemies, and a lot of even the mechanics are not in the game. And to me, I don't really mind that, because I understand that games are iterative and they're changed, you know, as development goes on. So I completely understand that, and I don't really hold it against them. But one of the main things that's in the trailers that I think the game could have benefited greatly from is this idea of a blocking system and a parry system. Now, this is in several of the trailers. In the actual game, there's no blocking. It's entirely a dodge-based system, and the dodge is pretty fucking anemic, dude. You play Doom Eternal, and you're dodging far as hell. You play this game, dude, you're like dodging maybe a foot. Like, it's a really anemic dodge. It makes the platforming annoying as well. So I think the game could benefit greatly from a blocking system or a parry system for sure, especially when you're fighting multiple enemies and they just get you in a corner. You're just fucked until you get the mass telekinesis ability or the polymeric shield that can actually grant you space in those situations. You just die because you're just trapped in a corner with a bunch of dudes. You can't block, you can't dash because they're just beating the shit out of you. So it's a little bit frustrating. I also think the difficulty scaling is kind of all over the place. Like I said, I started on hard mode, then I swapped to normals because for the first 5 or 6 hours, the game's like entirely linear. Then you get to the open world and the difficulty just skyrockets because there's cameras everywhere, there's bots everywhere. You don't have the ability to shut down all of the bots in an area yet. So it ends up becoming very, very frustrating and super hard. So I just turned it down to normal because I didn't really understand, you know, that you're supposed to sneak through the game. You're supposed to avoid the cameras until you unlock that ability to shut down the security system. So that was a little bit frustrating for me. I wish they would adjust the difficulty scaling a bit, because by the end of the game, even on the hardest difficulty, it's just trivial. Once you have those abilities, it's absolutely trivial. But yeah, I was actually a really big fan of the game for the most part. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, and I think that in general, it's certainly worth playing if you have Game Pass. The question becomes, is it worth playing if you're purchasing it for, you know, $60 or whatever? And this is going to come down to a per person basis, but I would say for me, I really enjoyed my time, mostly due to the fact that the world and everything was just so Bioshocky that it really scratched an itch that I've had for a long time. So I think, personally, it's worth purchasing. If I had to give it a rating, I would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed my time. Just don't go into it thinking it's Bioshock or Prey, and it's going to be serious, and it's going to, you know, really make you think. Like, it does have some very interesting commentary on, you know, the establishment of AI, on the, on communism, on capitalism. It does have those serious undertones to it, but at the same time, you have a protagonist that's gonna say, "Get fucked, Gearhead. Ah, crispy critters. I just shit my pants." You know, like, it's gonna be a little silly. Very silly. And so you just have to not go into it thinking it's a super serious game. And I think you'll certainly enjoy it. So for me, solid 8.5 out of 10. I thoroughly recommend it, especially if you can play it on Game Pass. If you're on PC or Xbox, play this without a doubt. It's a great time. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know what you think about the new review. Sorry you had to suffer through my puzzle gameplay, but you guys wanted my gameplay, so here it is. Okay, I suck at puzzles. You get to see it. Sorry. But anyway, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video, or stream Rooney. Bye bye. Dude, what?